Hey, what's up guys? This is Mike. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to build our first iPhone app, and it's going to be built using the Swift language. So whether you're a newbie to coding completely or you're an experienced developer looking to learn Swift, I think you come to the right place. And so let's just look at what we're going to learn today, and I'll show you the app that we're going to build. We're going to set up our development environment. We're going to learn about classes, variables, and functions. We're going to learn about arrays, which are just groups of variables. Table views, which display data in an iPhone app. And using the storyboard for the user interface, which is kind of drag and drop. It's a little finicky. We'll get to that. But it's drag and drop, and it's a lot of people that are beginners find it easier to use. And then segues using a thing called navigation controller. And again, all these things are built in to the Swift framework. You don't have to look far. They have a lot of good frameworks built in. And the model view controller design pattern, which is really commonly used. There's a variety of different ones, and each one has certain benefits and things. Yeah, let's look at the app we're going to build. Right. So yeah, here is the project we're going to complete in this tutorial. You see you have just a simple quotes app. It's got all the authors of the quotes with their picture over here, and you click it and it shows all the quotes. Great thing about this is that you can kind of do this for any author or quote that you like. You can customize it to be yours. You can even do movies here and have the movies in their poster, whatever image, and then it's quotes from it. There's a lot of versatility in this, and it shows you how to use a lot of features that you're going to see a lot in Swift programming. So let's get going. And before we download Xcode and get everything set up, I want to just go over a little bit about what the Swift language is. So it was created by developers at Apple, and it's used by everything from the Watch OS, TV OS, all that stuff. Basically every iMac apps are all built in it. It was launched in 2014, and already most of the apps on the App Store are using Swift. There's other options, things like Google's Flutter or Facebook's React Native that builds apps simultaneously in Android and iOS. But I really like Swift because it's built natively for the iPhone. It runs, the way that it uses memory and everything it's programmed to work with the phone. And before this, apps were written in Objective-C, which is like, it's a pretty rough language here. Let's just Google it. Let's look at some images here. See, I don't know, to me this just looks like, just looks like there's too many colons and brackets and, you'll see some of that same stuff in Swift, but not nearly as much. It looks a lot more like, just a normal kind of speaking language than it does some gibberish like this. Like the first C language, which is largely not used now, but it's very similar to the Objective-C, which is like, this language is basically, well, its roots are like 40 years old, 30 years old, something like that. It's just, we don't really need that anymore. But yeah, it was launched by the Swift developer team within Apple, and yeah, it's constantly updating and evolving, so you have to stay kind of plugged in to the Swift ecosystem to kind of see what happens when Swift 5, Swift 6. Right now we're on Swift 5. This project is built using Swift 5, which is, all the Swift languages are pretty similar. Maybe like you use a dot here that you don't use there and things like that, but it'll tell you, the Xcode will pop up and tell you when something is deprecated, and oh, maybe you should use this. That's one thing I really like about it. Now that leads me to well, first let's see. This is the Swift performance versus Objective-C. You can see through these data tests at these different analytics companies that Swift performs faster and, in my opinion and most people's opinion, is a lot easier to write. So now let's go into Xcode. This is Apple's built compiler for the Swift language. Whoops. And it compiler, for anybody that's new to programming, it converts the code that you type into binary. So computers only understand zeros and ones, and just large sequences of zeros and ones. And a compiler takes these languages that we type and puts it into that. It can be found on the Mac App Store, which is this little icon here. And I'll show you guys. Just go up here and just type Xcode, and there it is. It's this one. Just download. I already have it. I'm actually using the beta version right now, so I can use Swift 5. Sadly, it's only available on Apple computers. You can use Linux to write Swift. There's more stuff to that if you just Google it, but Xcode is only on the Apple computer. And if you don't have an Apple ID, you need one in order to create these apps. So here, I'll just show you iCloud.com. And then when this opens up, go down to Create Apple ID that's down here, and it'll pop up, and there you go. Just fill out all this stuff. Yes, I'm gonna leave. So yeah, there we go. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump into Xcode. And when we first open it up here, let me pull it into the view. You're going to see get started with a playground, create a new project on an existing project. We're going to create a new Xcode project. And it's going to be a single view app. And we're going to call it Quotes App. Actually, I already have a copy of it on my desktop, so I have to move that real quick. All right. Quotes App, and we're not going to check any of these boxes for now. For team, you just go in and you can add your Apple account right here. And then for organization name, I just put my name, and then for organization identifier, you want a unique identifier. So actually, I own this domain, so I know that that's unique. And then Apple fills out the bundle identifier for you. And we, of course, want it to be in Swift. There we go. Where do we want to save it? We're going to save it on desktop. Git, I'll show you in a different video how to use Git. But you might see me do like some Git commits on here, and if you're not familiar, don't worry, it's not like a necessary thing. Yeah, so now here is the main page, and we don't want our when we landscape left, we don't want the whole thing to shift, because just right now, we're kind of learning and we want to just do it in one mode. So let's uncheck that and just have it work in portrait mode. And so over here, you'll see all the stuff that comes with an app is the view controller, which controls this right here, the storyboard, which was a very valuable and unique part of Xcode. A lot of people do this programmatically. They set the constraints and everything. And I saw a request from a previous viewer, and I appreciate the input, and they wanted to set everything up programmatically. And I do that sometimes. I kind of switch off between both. But I think for a more simple app, I think that this is the best way to go, and especially if you're just trying to learn. And then, so here is our storyboard. And over here, we can say view as and whatever model you want to view it as. But remember that people have to look at this with different phone sizes and everything like that. So just down the road, don't forget to optimize everything for even like an iPhone, whatever this one is. This one looks so small. My gosh, these phones have gotten so big. It's crazy to see. Like sometimes I'll see like an older person with like an iPhone 5, and I'm like, oh my God, was that really what we used to communicate? Jeez. And then over here we have the assets folder. And the assets folder is basically just going to hold all the images. I've attached something down here in the description where you can download all the assets for this app. Just the images for the authors that we're going to use, and the app icon. So that's that. So yeah, so now everything is set up and ready to start coding. So we're going to move on to the next part, which is the classes, variables, and functions.